The half marathon is a special distance. It's unique from any other road race in that it requires the perfect blend of both speed and endurance to get it right. There are many runners who can run a strong 5K or 10K, but they struggle in the half. They simply lack the endurance to carry their speed for so long. Likewise, I know plenty of athletes who've run very impressive marathons, but their half marathon pace is barely any faster than what they've run for 26.2 miles. I love the half marathon because it requires you to be such a well-rounded athlete to really run one well. Do you want to run a great half marathon in the coming year? In this episode of the Knighton Runs podcast, I'm going to dive into the half marathon as a distance, talk specifically about what are the main differences between training for a half versus training for a full marathon, and why marathoners and those who aspire to run the marathon should make a concerted effort to, every so often, train specifically for the half marathon. Welcome to the Knighton Runs podcast. This is Coach Chris, and thank you for listening. Today's show is brought to you by the generous support of listeners like you. If you enjoy what I share here on the Knighton Runs podcast and want to support my work, you can do so at patreon.com/KnightonRuns and become a supporter today. Thanks so much. All right, so let's get into the half marathon a little bit. So what makes the half marathon so unique is it really does require a perfect balance between speed and endurance. The full marathon is primarily a test of endurance. Yes, your speed matters, and if you're not fast, you're not going to run a fast one, but the limiting factor for everyone in the full marathon is their endurance. And that's the main thing you want to be training when you're training for a marathon. When you're training for shorter distance races, things like 5K and 10K, speed and endurance are kind of equal in their importance. And in the half marathon itself, you really need to have both very, very strong endurance, but very, very strong speed to run one well. I know a lot of people who can run a very fast 5K and maybe even a 10K with bad endurance. I mean, you can run a great 5K on kind of fairly low mileage, as long as you're doing a lot of high quality speed. But something like the half marathon, you need to run both a lot of miles to build your endurance. You got to run long runs to build your endurance, but you also need to do speed workouts that are specific to the half marathon in order to run one really fast and to the best of your ability. The main differences between training for the full marathon and the half marathon are going to come down to how you approach the long run, how you approach the workouts. The first thing you want to think about when it comes to your approach for half marathon training is the distance 13.1 miles, is running that far going to be a challenge for you, or is it not? If you're a new runner, if you've never run a half marathon before, if 13.1 miles is the longest you've ever run, then yeah, it's going to be hard. And if that's the case, your primary challenge in training for the half marathon is building your endurance and getting strong enough so that you can go 13.1 miles without fading, without having to slow down, without getting sore, without hitting the wall, and finishing the run strong. If this sounds like you, then training for the half marathon is a lot like how most people are going to train for the marathon, the full marathon, that is. Your long run is going to be your most important run of the week. The workouts are going to be secondary to that, and you're primarily going to be trying to improve your endurance as you build up to the half by gradually increasing your weekly mileage, by gradually increasing the length of your long run, and then tapering off of that so you can reach a peak level of fitness and run 13.1 miles on race day. However, if you are a more intermediate to advanced runner and you've run many 13.1 mile runs in your life, maybe you even go longer than that in your long runs regularly, like I do, then running the half marathon distance is not a challenge in and of itself. Most folks who get up to 50 miles per week or more are regularly going to be doing over 13 miles in their weekly long run. So they can run that distance no problem. If this is you, then the half marathon mainly becomes a test of your speed. How fast can you run the distance? And if that's the case, then really the workouts that you do throughout training are going to be the focus of your training, not so much the long run itself, because you already can go the distance. The easy runs, the long runs that you do are just to build your mileage and to further increase your endurance. However, it's the speed workouts throughout the week that are going to be the main things that are going to drive your fitness forward so that you can run a faster half marathon. So let's talk about what the workouts should look like when it comes to training for half marathon. So this is very different than the workouts when you're training for a full marathon, in the sense that generally they're going to be shorter and faster. So for full marathoners, the fastest I really ever have them run in training is 5K to 10K pace. All of my athletes do strides, which are short, fast runs at about their mile pace. Think, running at 90% effort for 20 to 30 seconds. I have everybody who I train do that. But when it comes to big workouts like Tuesday track session or intervals, for example, the fastest marathoners really need to go is 5K to 10K pace. That's because 5K to 10K pace is so much faster than marathon pace that it's going to help make their marathon pace feel faster. It's going to help make their marathon pace feel easier. And the intervals can also be long enough where they help and build your endurance as well, which is helpful when training for the full marathon. But when you're training for the half marathon, since it's a shorter race and a faster race, then you can begin your workouts at a quicker pace. So if you've been listening to this show for a while, or you've read my book, you know about the 6 phases of marathon training. This can be adapted for the half marathon as well, the 6 phases of half marathon training. So after you come out of the base phase and you've run your easy mileage, you move into what I call the speed development phase. For marathoners, this is where they would do their 5K to 10K pace speed workouts. But for half marathoners, you can do more like 1 mile pace repetitions, or repetitions as slow as 5K pace. So rather than doing your speed workouts at 5K to 10K, if you are a marathoner, as a half marathoner, you do them more at 1 mile to 5K pace. What these workouts do is just like similar, as I was saying, for marathon training, since they're so much faster than what will be your half marathon pace, they will ultimately make it feel much easier to run your half marathon pace when you get there. And by focusing on short or faster workouts early on in training, you're going to do several things that are going to help prepare you for the half marathon. You're going to get faster because of several reasons. You're doing short, fast workouts. These workouts are going to help improve your running form by the sheer nature that running fast requires you to run with good form. So when you practice it, you improve your form. You neurologically build the ability to fire your muscles fast, move your limbs fast, run fast. And that's a skill that needs to be trained. And if you don't do it, you won't be able to do it. And you're also, by doing these harder, shorter, faster workouts early on, building the skeletal muscular strength that you're then going to need as you move on to doing longer and slower workouts in the later parts of training. So primarily these short, fast workouts, they get you faster, they improve your running form, they make you more efficient at faster speeds, they get you comfortable running fast, and they prepare you for what will be more challenging workouts later on in training. As you move out of the speed development phase and move into the race specific phase for half marathon training, you're going to want to slow down and lengthen your weekly speed workout. So if you have been doing, let's say, 1 mile to 5K pace repetitions that I was just talking about, when you get into when you get into the race specific phase of training, which will be about 2.5 months before your half marathon and then up into it, you're going to want to start to do, again, lower but longer speed workouts. So a great speed workout for a half marathoner is doing intervals at 10K pace. So 10K pace is a little bit faster than half marathon pace. It's good speed development for a half marathoner. And the intervals can also be quite long. So it's a good endurance building workout for a half marathoner. Examples of these could be things like 400 meter repeats at 10K pace, 800 meter repeats, 1200s, and 1600s or miles at 10K pace. And your recovery for this should be a jog of close to or up to an equal amount of time for what it took you to run that interval. So imagine you're doing a workout, let's just say it was 4 by 800 meters at 10K pace. Let's say the 800 meters took you 4 minutes. For your recovery, you'd want to take up to 4 minutes recovery, up to equal time, but you could probably get away with a little less. So for that athlete, I would probably suggest 3 minutes recovery. So you'd be running fast for 4 minutes at 10K pace and then jogging slow for 3 minutes or potentially up to 4 minutes at an easy recovery pace. If you do that type of workout for several months in a row, you're going to get a lot faster. Half marathon pace is not going to feel hard, and you're going to have built the speed that you need to run the fastest half of your life. The other type of workout that half marathoners need to be doing is a weekly endurance building workout. And this is a workout that you're going to do throughout the speed development phase as well as the race specific phase of half marathon training. Similar to how I generally follow a fast to slow philosophy with the workouts, when you're in the speed development phase, your weekly endurance building workout can be a bit shorter and faster. And then as you move into the race specific phase, it can be a bit longer and slower, and therefore more specific to what the half marathon is going to be. So examples of this would be things like a tempo run, a progression run, or a session of broken up tempo miles or tempo segments. So steady tempo run could be something like 2 miles warm up, 2 miles at a tempo pace, 2 miles cool down. Tempo is generally a pace that's going to fall between 10K and half marathon pace, and how fast you go really depends on the specifics of the workouts you're running, but usually this is going to feel about like a 7 out of 10 effort. And shorter intervals, you can probably run a little bit closer to that 10K pace. Longer intervals, you're probably going to run a little bit closer to that half marathon pace in order to keep it a 7 out of 10. An example of a progression run, this is a great workout that's going to teach you how to push your limits and teach you how to race with confidence. Progression run could be something like, let's say, 4 miles for a beginner athlete, where the first mile is easy, the second mile is moderate, the third mile is fast, and then the fourth mile is an easy cool down. And what you're trying to do with these progression runs is start off easy, gradually move up the pace chart. So you start off easy, then maybe you're running closer to marathon pace, then you're going to get up to half marathon pace, and then you're going to push beyond half marathon pace for a little bit. So you might get up to 10K pace for your final fast mile, and then you're going to cool down with a little bit of easy running. These are great workouts for half marathoners. The best way to run a half marathon is to start your first 5 miles comfortable. From mile 5 to 10, build your confidence and set yourself up for a strong finish. And then when you get to mile 10, really start to compete and push hard. I know that in my best half marathons and those of many of my athletes, we've negative split it and we've run our fastest miles after mile 10. And that's how you should always try to approach running your half marathons if the courses allow for that, with the way that they're constructed. Progression runs teach you to gradually increase your effort over time. And that's going to be how it feels in a race. Even if you're running a steady pace in a race, it's going to start off feeling comfortable. It's going to get harder. And then by the end, it's going to get very hard. But if you've practiced this in training by doing progression runs, you know how to control your body. You know what you're capable of. And you know that you can dig deep at the end of runs. So for my half marathoners and those who follow my programs and who I coach one-on-one, I typically will alternate from week to week when they're training for a half marathon between a weekly tempo run, which includes steady paced running, and a weekly progression run, which includes progressively faster running. For some athletes too, I'll have broken up tempos. So instead of doing, say, 2 or 3 or even 4 miles steady at a tempo pace, I'll instead break up their miles. So they might do 800s at tempo with a short rest, or mile repeats at tempo with a short rest. Maybe even 2x2 miles or 3x2 miles with a short rest. This is a good way to get in more volume at tempo pace with less strain on our bodies. So, for example, let's just say you were someone who, maybe you only felt capable of running 3 miles at a tempo pace. But if you broke it up, you could do 4 miles. So you're getting in a bit more work. If you did 4 by a mile, that's probably going to be a bit easier on your body than if you did 4 miles steady. And maybe you could only do 3 miles steady, but if you broke it up, you could do 4. So it allows you to get a bit more volume. And by doing those short breaks. And the other thing that it allows you to do to break up tempo runs is to potentially run the repeats a little bit faster. So like if you're doing 4 by a mile, for example, you can probably run those miles a little bit faster than if you were doing 4 miles steady at tempo. One thing to keep in mind with tempo runs is, in order to get the desired effect out of them, which is improving your endurance, improving your ability to run well through comfortably hard, challenging conditions, and improve your lactic threshold, you don't want to turn them into a race. And this is a common mistake that a lot of people do. A lot of people run their tempo runs too hard. I definitely do it too sometimes. But keep in mind that tempo runs should really feel like a 7 out of 10 intensity. And if they feel harder than that, you want to back off. I would say that it's good advice to do a tempo run what you think is too slow rather than too fast. That way you don't turn it into a race effort and you save yourself for the next workout or long run. Last thing I just wanted to touch on is the long run for half marathoners and how you should approach it. So I was mentioning earlier that the emphasis of the long run really depends on, if you're a beginner or lower mileage runner versus a more experienced or higher mileage runner. And that's generally what you need to think about when you're training for the half marathon. You prioritize it if running the distance is going to be hard for you. You kind of deprioritize it if running 13 miles is not an issue for you. If you're generally keeping your long run at like 25 to 30% of your total weekly mileage, it's in a good range. Lower mileage runners really don't need to run more than 9 or 10 miles before a half marathon. They'll do just fine. Higher weekly mileage runners, if you keep it in that 25 to 30% range, maybe you get up to 14, 15, 16 miles per week. That's good too. I think the pace for the half marathon for the long runs when half marathon training should generally be easy. And that's what I include in my training programs and with the athletes who I coach one-on-one. Since the length of the long run is not super long when half marathon training, you really want to maximize your time on feet and the amount of time you spend getting aerobic adaptation. So most of the benefits of running come from running at easier efforts. And really, the point of the long run is to be out there for as much time as possible. So when we run our long runs fast, we are, though we're probably getting a very good workout in, and it is race specific, it's kind of depriving ourselves of one of the main benefits of the long run, which is an extended period of time out there getting aerobic adaptation. Our bodies really start to benefit from the effects of a long run when they're in, let's say, like the 80 minutes to 2 hour range. And if you're running your long runs so fast that they're shorter than that, you're maybe not getting the full benefit from the long run that you could be. So this is why I usually keep the intensity of long runs easy when half marathon training, and also because the midweek workouts can often be quite long compared to the distance of the half marathon. Like if you're an intermediate or advanced runner, you could easily be doing 8 to 10 miles or more in a midweek workout, which includes speed. So if you're doing that, that's not like a big jump to then go up to 13 miles in a race. And for the lower mileage runners listening to this, maybe if your midweek runs are only like 3 to 5 miles, if that's the case for you, then the long run is your priority anyway. So you want to keep the pace on that pretty comfortable and easy so you can just focus on running the longer distance. All that said, I do think it can be helpful to do maybe 1 or 2 long runs that include speed in them in the final stages of your half marathon training. One workout that I've particularly enjoyed and have given to a lot of my athletes over the years is like 3 weeks before their goal half marathon, giving them a workout something along the lines of 14 miles where 5 miles easy, 4 miles at half marathon pace, and then 5 miles easy. I think that can be a huge confidence builder where you can practice your gear, your fueling, run on a course similar to what you're going to race on. You could do 15 miles with 5 easy, 5 at half marathon, 5 easy cool down. That's another great one. Or potentially break it up, maybe do something like 2 times 3 miles at half marathon pace in the middle of your long run. But all that said, from my experience, if you follow training like this, if you are capable of doing like 4 miles at half marathon pace in a workout or in a long run in your training, you'll be able to then go triple that, or more than triple that, and run the full 13 miles on race day. And yeah, those are kind of the main differences between training for the full marathon and training for the half marathon. And hopefully I taught you here what specifically you want to do in training for your next half marathon. The half marathon is a super important distance for marathoners to train for. One last word of wisdom I want to leave you with is you never want to stop working on your speed. And one of the main advantages of training for the half marathon, if you are a marathoner, if you think of yourself as a marathoner, is it breaks you up from the rut of only training for marathons, and lets you focus on speed for a season. It lets you do faster workouts, faster speed, faster tempos, and less distance in your long runs, which is going to help you become a faster athlete. If you're only training for marathon after marathon after marathon, I think it's really hard to continue to improve your speed long term, and I think you'll ultimately run into a plateau when you do that. This is why that I recommend to my athletes that I never want them to train for more than 2 or 3 marathons in a row. After that, I highly encourage them to take a break from the marathon and focus on the half marathon or shorter distances for a season. And if you do that, you're going to break through a plateau in speed. And when you come back to your next full marathon after you've done a season focusing on shorter distances, you're going to be a lot faster thanks to it. All right. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Knighton Runs podcast. If you're interested in learning more about how to run the best half marathon of your life in the coming year, I have a new program that I'm going to be releasing on KnightonRuns.com on January 22nd 2024. It's called the Half Marathon Mastery Program. And inside, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to run the best half marathon of your life. Hope you'll check it out. And if you haven't already downloaded a free PDF copy of my book, you can get the preview edition of Run Faster Marathons, The Proven Path to PR, by going to knightonruns.com. Inside, you'll learn more about all the philosophies I talk about for marathon and half marathon training, including the 6 phases of marathon training that I went a little bit into for the half marathon here today, and much more. I hope you'll check that out too. All right, until next time, I hope your running is going well. This has been Coach Chris with the Knighton Runs podcast, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.